thankful for a way these stories hold on to the lifetime we won't get back. I know these rivers carry on. People tend to stick to you after time. Places tend to do the same as we do. This river carries on and on.
Hello and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake LaMore, and on this episode we are sitting down with who I call and think of as a troubadour of Kankakee County.
Oh, well, that's high praise, Sam. Thank you.
Let's welcome Matt Yeager to the podcast.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You're the. I feel like we had this conversation on Facebook at some point, or maybe it was one of the little radio interviews we did. I can't remember, but I feel like we had that conversation about you being a troubadour.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't use that term, but I suppose that would be a better term than any if you are talking about what it means to be a songwriter and telling stories about your life. And so, yeah.
And I mean, I feel like you're just overall a troubadour, because no matter what, you are always doing something, whether it's been one of the many different bands you've been in, or you're ripping solo gigs, or, I mean, you're doing it like you have to make money, so you're going to play your songs, but you're also going to play the popular catalog from
Correct.
That everyone loves and knows from the radio or Spotify, I guess, nowadays.
Yeah. That is definitely a delicate balance that a lot of musicians of my ilk would have to. You got to decide at some point what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And I mean, there's so many options to be had, but you do have to make that choice. And so, yeah, I've chosen to give the people what they want to a degree, while also trying to insert my art along the way as well. And especially as an acoustic performer, playing solo gives me a lot more flexibility depending on the environment, where I can, slide some of my music in there. But, if you're in a beer-soaked bar on a Friday night and it's 11 o'clock, you better be giving them the hits,
Right. You better be playing, frickin'. Well, I'm sure you do. You probably do play Freebird, because everyone asks for it, right? Have you played a show where no one has shouted that out in the crowd?
Well, I mean, it does happen once in a while, but
once in a while?
Well, I think there's an important commentary that goes into this. So one of the things that I do at my solo shows, when I'm playing by myself at a bar, I carry these books with me that contain all of the songs that I know how to play. We just refer to them as the books. And there's like 750 songs in all the different styles and genres, including my own material is also in there. And then the first 2 pages, I wish I would have brought a book. But
yeah, I was going to say we should have brought a book.
The first 2 pages are the rules in the book, because I do these shows.
So hold on, before you get the rules, are these for people to actually look through, or are these rules for you? Or do you set these books out and you say, here, I want you to look at these books, but first you have to read all the rules on page 2?
In a perfect world, the requester would show up at one of my shows with their group, probably belly up to the bar and get a couple of drinks, and then secure one of the books. If they've never been to one of my shows, you open it up and the first 2 pages are the rules. in case they're like, what do we do here? What is this?
What do we do with this book? Yeah.
I want to hear some songs, but I don't know what he knows. I don't know what he knows how to play. So I have streamlined the process by giving the listener the entire catalog of what I know how to play. But it's not a situation where I want you as the listener to sit there and shout at me all night, because that would take forever and it's very distracting and very disruptive to the show.
So what are these rules?
Okay,
I'm very interested to know what, because I apologize, Matt. I don't think I have seen a solo.
It's okay.
Matt Yeager show.
It's perfectly fine.
I saw a little bit of Southside Social Club at Oktoberfest this last year. I was able to catch a little bit. Yeah, because, we, Kankakee Podcast had a booth set up. And I'm usually there anyway. It's my hometown,
Right.
But we had a booth set up there. And so I remember, I think I was going to find dinner or something. And it was during the time that you guys were playing. So I caught a little bit of a set. And I remember hearing Fall Out Boy, which I was very surprised to. I'm like, they're playing Sugar, We're Going Down Swinging. I'm like, wow. I knew that there was a huge catalog, but I apologize that I have not seen your solo yet. So that's why I'm asking these questions.
I don't. I certainly don't take I don't take attendance at the shows, and I'm certainly not making mental notes in my head like, wow. As a matter of fact, Jake hasn't been to a show in a while. Like, you're
I'm
busy.
not doing his podcast. He doesn't come to my shows.
You have several jobs. You got family and stuff, and I certainly am not keeping tabs on your presence or lack thereof at the show. So it's perfectly fine. The door is certainly always open.
Yeah.
If you ever had some time and you were curious as to how this situation worked, you're more than welcome to come out.
I mean, it needs to happen. It needs to be, especially with, I know your busiest time is when the weather gets warmer.
Oh, yeah.
So, with spring just around the corner, I mean, I'm going to have to put that in my, people have like their summer bucket list or whatever. I'm going to have to put that on my summer bucket list to say, see Matt Yeager solo.
Yeah, so the rules.
Yes.
I want to say there's like maybe 5. Like, I haven't looked for a little while, but I'm going to try to remember off the top of my head. I know the very first rule is you're allowed to make as many requests as you want.
Oh, okay.
Like, this is not a one request per person show. You can make as many requests as you want, and you can write more than one, because like the books have all the songs I know how to play, and then there's a front flap, and on the inside of the front flap are these little white pieces of paper, kind of like karaoke. You write them down, and then I have this little bucket that sits right next to me. So you write down what you want to hear, and you set it in the bucket. And you can make as many as you want. I've got people that come to the shows and request a ton. Like, they'll put 30, 40 requests in there and just sit there all night and go, let me hear my song, dude.
You know what I want to do is when I come to your first show, I'm going to write down just a album, just a whole album of something, and put it in.
See if I can see if you can trip me up.
Yeah.
So the rules come by as do's and don'ts.
Okay.
So the first one is do make as many requests as you want, and then the don't is do not write down titles and artists that are not in the book. Do not write down titles and artists that are, and I keep saying that, and each time in the book, it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's in all caps, and it's basically me yelling, do not write down titles and artists that are not in the book.
I can relate to that coming from a radio background. I've gotten callers or people on social media where, like, working on WFAV, let's say, I'll get listeners that request country songs. And I mean, of course, yes, there are those what we call crossover hits where there are some country songs that wind up on a top
Florida
40
Georgia line or something.
Yeah, that's a great example. But they'll request like the most countryest song ever, or they'll request like I swear to God, one guy one time requested Volbeat.
Oh, Volbeat.
And Volbeat is like
proggy kind of rock band. Yeah.
Very, heavy.
Heavy would be a good word.
And I had someone request that on WFAV, which is a pop station.
Sure.
You know, it's a hot pop station, top 40 station. There's no way I'm going to play Volbeat. There's no way I'm going to play, you know, Garth Brooks. I mean, so
Yeah,
so I can totally relate
I get
to,
you.
you
It's
know, like what, you know.
We're looking at towards 20 after the hour. We're going to get you some Drake, followed up by some Dua Lipa, and then coming up next is Volbeat.
Volbeat. wait, what? Yeah, the people that know Volbeat that are listening, and then the people that don't know are like, what is that? What in the world is that?
Yeah, I get, but like what happens at the shows is, I'll just tell you right now, like this will be a no spoiler here, but nobody ever reads the rules. Like I'd say probably
I'm so shocked.
less than 10%, maybe less. Some people do, and they'll because the rules are written in sort of a kind of a cheeky, humorous way. It's definitely written from my perspective and sort of my personality. It's fun, and I'd like to think that they're humorous rules. It's not meant to be taken seriously, and people that have caught on to that can be like, I really enjoyed that.
Well, then what happens is you get the Joker that reads the do not request song, and then you get a bunch of those from the same person because they're just being a complete jerk about it, you know.
So that's that would be the first rule is you're allowed to make as many requests as you want. And then the don't rule is don't write down titles and artists that aren't in the book. It never fails. I'll still pull out, you know, Gordon Lightfoot or stuff that I don't know, and there'll be people that just and they don't mean anything by it. They just don't read the book and they don't read the rules and they just think, hey, this guy knows every song ever written. So I'll just pull out the most obscure song ever.
They see your posts on Facebook and you talk about, I just got another 100 songs added to the book, and I'm like, man, does this guy sleep? You know, does he do this in his sleep? Is there like a hypnotist, or does he like put headphones on at night and just gets like subliminal messages, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I do listen to a lot of music. That's true. I'm trying to remember. The other rules are all they're all very important. Like the second rule is you're freely able to sing along. You can get up and move around if you want. You can encourage your friends to join you in all the festivities. But what you can't do is try to get up and sing or come up and be like, my cousin's here and she's like really good at singing. So you need to get her up here and do a song. Or my boyfriend has been playing guitar for like 14 seconds and I want you to hand over your guitar and let him do a song. So those type of things do happen from time to time as well, where people will think that, you know, they come in with a group of 5 or 6 people and be like, hey, you know, Johnny over there is a pretty good player.
Yeah.
Maybe get him up and do a tune. And
it's just like going to family gatherings over the years. The first thing that happens, right? Especially when you're a teenager, right? And I'm sure this happened to you. Well, we haven't gotten into the, you know, the early days of Matt Yeager yet, but I'm assuming you probably were playing as a teenager, you know, and it's time for the Easter gathering with the fam. And so-and-so learns that you're now playing electric guitar, and they're like, oh, play some for us. Come on.
My mom. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know now looking back, it was probably just a source of pride for them to just have kids that were, you know, me and my brothers, we all played instruments and they were very happy and proud, but it did sometimes wind up being like that. It was just like, as children, we became a source of amusement and entertainment for our parents.
Yeah.
And then we'd have a family party and be like, okay, Matt, go get the guitar and play for all the family.
And then they all ask for something that you don't play.
Or I would be 16 years old playing something that I'd either written or learned and then be forced to play that for the next 20 years of my life because that was sort of the inception of the musical performance. So, hey, play that thing. Remember we were at that party and you played that song? I'm like, I don't even know if I remember that song anymore. Yeah. Well, that's what you played. And I'm like, I know, but I've learned a lot more since then.
Yeah. Can I play you something else I've learned, please? Something that I like more.
I love my family very much, and I don't mind having that role in my family.
Yeah.
But it's certainly some humble beginnings. Mm-hmm. It's a lot different these days, you know. Now, if my family gathers and, everyone's having a couple of drinks, I'll pull the guitar out, no problem. Sometimes
Sure.
I'll even have a book with me and throw it out to my family and be like, pick whatever you want. I'll play whatever you want. But yeah, having to be downstairs with my friends and having, my mom call me upstairs and be like, go get your guitar, play a song for my friends. Like it wasn't always,
No,
wasn't always what I wanted.
It's so intimidating too, But getting back, I'm sorry. I know we're going all over. I'm the one who's getting you off track. But going back to the rules though. So yeah, there's no, hey, my boyfriend, like he's really good at like singing Prince. Can you, So I'm sure you've gotten into those situations. Because that rule is in play for a reason.
Yes.
So I'm sure there was a time where you did maybe perhaps let someone take the guitar or sing and
there's
what
one.
happened?
I have one story, and it's probably the story that has to be told in this situation. I was playing at a bar called Zante, which is up in Orland Park.
That's on Route 6 or 159?
159.
Yeah.
They have they sort of they changed like visual concepts. They don't call it's not called Zante.
It's Black
anymore.
Sheep.
They changed it to Black Sheep. Oh no, I think
is it changed again?
It did. When I played there, it was Black Sheep. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I played there with my old band when it was Zante, and then I was playing acoustic when it was Black Sheep, and they have since rebranded yet again, and now they're geared more towards like fine dining food, taco trucks, pizza, fusion stuff.
Because I remember before when it was Black Sheep, they had like a taco truck, or they made their kitchen look like a taco
It was like a
truck.
facade.
Yeah, it was a facade. They had really good food there.
They did, and they still do. Still do, but they just have they sort of drifted away from the club environment and drifted away from bands and entertainment and pushed more on the food side of it, which is fine for them. But one time while it was Black Sheep, I was playing there on a Friday night. Now, when they hired me to play acoustic, they wanted me to play out in their very spacious outdoor seating area, kind of like a beer garden. And it was beautiful. Like they had the big torches and they had like these nice awnings and everybody, be bringing dinner out. It was just beautiful, beautiful. The skyline, it was just skyline of Orland Park, but like with the sun.
They've got,
I meant to say more like the way the sun was setting off. It just was really beautiful. And I always loved playing there. They were so gracious, and they're just, Greeks have a way of just treating you like family, really hospitable people. And I loved playing there. But the night that I was playing there, it was raining.
Okay.
So you'd go this plan B route. If you were scheduled to play acoustic and it was raining, they'd put you on the main stage.
Inside.
Now, the main stage is like, back then it was like this 20,000 watt monstrosity, huge sound system, a light show that would rival an amphitheater, like just enormous.
Their lights are absolutely crazy there. But their stage, the actual stage itself, is one of the weirdest stages that I've ever played on.
Yeah, it's like
it's weird.
Elevated, and then there's like iron fencing around it and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was, I loved doing it when it was a full band show because, there's a lot of energy in the room and it was great. But just me by myself, I really just felt like I was just screaming into a tin can the whole time. It was just one guy and a guitar. But the night that I'm talking about was a pretty good turnout. There was a decent amount of people, and, I was vibing with the crowd pretty good. I had some requests, and sure enough, I go to take a break, put the guitar down for a few minutes, and I'm like talking to some people, and this guy comes up, and he's very, very tall and slender. He's got long hair. He's got like an open, his collared shirt was open down to like 2 buttons, and he's got a guitar pick as a necklace.
Oh no. And
he's just got all this sort of young guy swag, and he's just like, hey man, I see you doing a good job, bro, man. You sound real good. just think maybe I could like do a song? Come back and do a song? Like he's just being real schmoozy.
Yeah.
And I was like,
me.
Man, I don't do that, man. I'm sorry. Thanks, but why don't you just go hang out with your friends and let me do the work tonight? You just go chill and have fun. And he took it exactly the way people take it, which is just like, all right, man. Like you could see that there was like this little twinge of butt hurt because I didn't acquiesce to his request. But then this is where things go so wrong.
Oh no.
I think I might have went over to the bar to get a drink. I don't know. I walked away and my mom was standing there because my parents, who now currently live in Arkansas, were mainstays at my shows. They would be at every gig. And so my mom starts talking to the guy, or the guy starts talking to my mom. Somehow he convinces her or tells her that he had tried out for one of the many TV singing shows.
So American Idol.
Pick one. I don't remember which one.
One of what is there? There's American Idol. There's America's Got Talent.
Yeah. Then you have like The Voice.
Yeah.
I think there was even an X Factor in there for one season.
Oh yeah.
But whatever it was, he was trying to establish some pedigree with my mom. Like, I tried out for X, Y, and Z.
Did he actually sound like that too?
He did. Yeah. He really did. Like. He might be the basis of the voice that is used. It was probably him. But he did. He, instead of trying to like give me his credentials, he told my mother. My mom's just a sweet lady. She's the sweetest human being.
I wonder if he just randomly struck up conversation with her, or if he like targeted her and like knew like, hey, that's his mom.
Yes. Because I would have no doubt acknowledged that she was my mother, because that was another part of the show. Like my mom, a lot of the regular attendees to my shows become part of the show.
Sure.
They get acknowledged. They have their roles at the shows. And she's kind of sometimes my mom would wind up being a little bit of a punching bag for me on the stage. She'd be the butt of the jokes and stuff. I'd be like yelling at my mom and stuff, I think it's a really important thing to understand about me that I don't think people get, is that when I perform, that's not exactly me.
Yes.
On that stage. That's really more of an exaggerated personification of me. That basically just sort of a arrogant, belligerent, louder version of myself. I don't normally act like that. I don't yell at my mom from the stage. She's my mother. I also don't I will say things like, I'm so incredibly handsome. It's just a hard thing to have to do this job all the time when you're as good looking as I am. I don't really feel that way. But I've always felt like it's important as a performer to separate yourself from the performer and then create a personification of something that is worthwhile to watch, that's entertaining.
And it's not necessarily fake.
No.
It's just you're an entertainer, so you're putting on you're giving it everything you've got.
I don't act in my real life. I don't act the way I do when there's a microphone in front of me. The person on stage is sort of an exaggerated version of my real life self, which is probably the case for a lot of people. And my mom is a great example of how that works, is because I will yell at her from the microphone when in real life I'm very respectful to my mother. Yeah. But when I'm on stage, she'll become a pincushion for me.
That goes out the window.
Mom, get over there and give me a shot. I'll scream at her.
What are you doing?
So this night, I feel like he was aware that this was my mother. And my mom is being the sweetheart she is. Like I returned to her from wherever I went, bathroom, bar, wherever I went, and she essentially talked me into letting him play. She was like, Matt, I know you said no. This is my mother. Matt, I know you said no to that guy, but you ought to give him a shot. He said that he tried out for American Idol. I'm like, Mom, they'll let anybody try out. Yeah, but he said he made it through a couple rounds. He might be pretty good. He's got a big group of people over there. I think maybe maybe you should let him play a song. And I'm like, no, Mom, no. Don't you understand how this works?
This is my show.
I'm like, do you have any idea how expensive this equipment is and how long it's taken to cultivate this show? You want me to just hand him the guitar, give him the reins? I'm like, these people hired me to play a show here. They didn't hire me to host an open mic. This is my show. That's my name up there. And you want me to just give the guitar to some guy that I don't even know because he tried out for American Idol? Because he stood in line with 14,000 people at the United Center?
Yeah, well, he bought me a drink, dear.
So
he was very nice.
I was agitated with my mother, who was pleading a good case, and I walked away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what happened that night, but I just...
Did he approach you again?
No. But I softened up. And
okay.
I eventually capitulated. And I went over to him, and because he had a specific song that he wanted to play.
Oh, okay.
He wanted to sing "I Will Follow You Into the Dark" by Death Cab for Cutie. That's the song he wanted to play. Like he didn't just say, "Hey man, can I get up there and do a song?" He was like, "Hey man, can I get up there and do "I Will Follow You Into the Dark" by Death Cab for Cutie?" I'm like, frankly speaking,
not to stereotype, but I feel like that's how some Death Cab for Cutie fans come off a little pretentious like that.
Absolutely. I think,
and I'm not, if someone is listening to this and they're a Death Cab for Cutie fan, like I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying some of their fans that I've encountered have kind of like this,
I don't think this guy was even a Death Cab for, I wouldn't have lumped him in with Death Cab's diehard fans. He probably just heard that song and liked it and learned it and sang it to his girlfriend. And
that you mention it, like giving the description of him,
mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like he's...
Like if I would have pulled him off to the side and said, "You want to sing "I Will Follow You Into the Dark" by Death Cab for Cutie? Name me 5 Death Cab for Cutie songs. Name 3 of their albums." He'd just be like, "Bro, I just wanted to do that one song, bro." Like he wouldn't have. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. That was the song he wanted to do.
I want to make that, I'm going to have you come back. We're going to make this guy a regular character on Kankakee Podcast.
Yeah, bro, I just, He did. He just had that.
Okay.
I don't know.
So he had the specific song he wanted to play.
And I had a change of heart. And so this was a 2 sets. It was one night, 2-set show. I played the first set at the top of the second set. I even sort of, I introduced him and I said what my mom had said. I said, "Look, I don't ever do this, but, I have a feeling about this guy. We're going to give him a chance. Orland Park, how about a nice welcome?" I don't remember what his name was, but I introduced him and I handed him my guitar and he puts it on. And I was playing a Taylor at the time.
I know you're a Dean Martin, or not a Dean Martin. Listen to me.
I do like Dean Martin.
A Martin guy. My gosh. But both Martin and Taylors are pretty expensive.
Yeah, it was a nice guitar. It was very expensive. And he didn't have a pick. I'm like, "Why don't you just use the one around your neck?" It's but it's like on a necklace. So I reach in my pocket, I hand him the pick, and he's like, "Which capo position is it?" Like he's got he didn't seem to have, I know it. If you don't play guitar, it's that little sort of hooky thing that you put on the bridge to change your tuning. And
it looks like a clamp.
Yeah, it's like a clamp. But
he was asking you where the clamp should go.
And I believe off the top of my head, I think "I Will Follow You Into the Dark" is capo position 5, but I'm not 100% sure. So even me, I'm standing there right in front of him with 75 people watching us, and I'm trying to set his capo position for him because he doesn't seem to know exactly what he's doing. And he starts strumming, and his strumming ability was probably like 8th grader with 2 years of experience. Like he just wasn't much of a strummer, and he didn't have very good coordination, and he certainly couldn't sing very well. He was messing things up pretty severely.
Do you think he was just very nervous?
I do. I think that I probably made him very nervous. I think that, he might have been thrown a Hail Mary and didn't expect me to say yes. I think I caught him off guard. He might have been boozed up too. He could have been, at that point in the night, he probably had already had a few drinks. And
yeah, that's the second set of the night.
Yeah, it was probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And
Yeah.
his friends were so excited. They all had their phones out and they were cheering him on and stuff. But all I could think when he was a minute and a half into the song was, I am never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. I'm looking at my mom. My mom's shrugging and kind of wincing.
She's like, well.
Like, hey, he said he was good.
Yeah.
And this guy, I mean, he just did he did what amounts to be about a karaoke version of the song, which, you know, that would be an entire show of itself in terms of my personal philosophy on whether every person that is competent to sing and play should be out in the bars playing. Like,
Right. I mean, you're not doing you're not doing a live karaoke show.
no, but
You know, I mean, you are the performer. You're the
It's
one
just-
who's playing the songs.
there's a gigantic disconnect that happens sometimes with people when they have some musical or vocal ability. And I don't know if shows like American Idol, or if it's just our society as a whole over the past 20 years has changed somewhere along the way, but it seems like anybody that is a competent singer or musician, all of a sudden their friends and family are encouraging them to just swing for the fences. Like, wow, man, you sing pretty good. You should go be on one of these TV shows. And everybody gets this misperception in their heads that, like, well, maybe I am that good. And they don't want to put in the time and effort and work that it really takes to earn your spot. You just want to show up for the job. Like, I'm here for my audition.
Yeah. Like,
And then when there's like this cascading disappointment when you're immediately dismissed and you're just left with this sort of emptiness of like, but I thought I was really good. I thought I was so good at this. Like, you probably are a glorified karaoke singer. You're probably karaoke level, so go out and have fun with it. But
well, and I mean, especially with the example you're giving, they're at a starter stature, you know, and they have to get more experience, and it's like anything you do, right? Whether it's music or art or sports. You first start it, and I mean, maybe you're lucky and you start and you're like, oh, I'm actually not too bad at this, you know, but, you know, that doesn't mean you know,
Yeah.
you have to keep working at it.
you could take sports as a great like analogy or a metaphor for that. When you got like a 12-year-old kid that's whipping 75-mile-an-hour fastballs and you're like, he's got something, you know, let's get him into the gym. Let's bulk him up a little bit. Let's get him a private coach that's going to teach him how to harness the speed and accuracy in his arm. And you spend the next 5 years cultivating and working him out and teaching him how to throw a slider. And you do all of this work for the guy. The whole time you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars cultivating, getting him up to a 95-mile-an-hour, and then nothing happens. You know, he does tryouts, tries to walk on it at college level, and it's like, yeah, he's good, but he's not good enough. Yeah, he can throw, but he's not, like, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is promised. But at least when you put in the work and you put in the effort and you put in the time, that's your best shot. But showing up to try out for America's Got Talent is tantamount to never doing anything but just thinking that you're going to walk onto the Cubs because you can throw fast without doing any of the work involved. Like, you did nothing, but you just walked on and be like, because, yeah, you know, my friends down at the bar said that I sound really good when I sing, you know, Drake, and I sound great. So give me my $5 million, please. Like, what did you do to earn it? You did nothing. And then you get the delusions get even worse when you hear those miraculous, almost like those miraculous stories where it does happen, where people did walk on, and then you know, all the moons and planets lined up for this one person, and it was successful, and it happened. But really, like, your best bet, if you honestly think that you have musical talent and capability, would be to set a realistic expectation for yourself. That's what I tell everybody about the life of being a musician, is set a realistic goal, set a realistic expectation, and then go earn it. Go follow through with it. And if you set the bar 10 feet off the ground and then you reach to 10 feet, then maybe raise it to 12, maybe raise it to 14. But don't come out of the gate and be like, I want to go 100 feet, because all you're going to do is disappoint yourself. And then it's going to cause all this frustration. And then you're going to like assuage blame to everybody else instead of saying, well, maybe I'm not that good. You know, it's so frustrating, even on the molecular level, which is how I feel. I'm just one guy playing music in a small town, but even I can see the frustration. I can feel the frustration for people that just have this sort of entitlement of what they think that they're owed because they're capable musicians or singers. It's like, go and earn it. That's all I can tell you.
And at the end of the day, we all need to remember whatever it is that we are trying to pursue, we're not owed anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things. It's hard for some of us to grasp the fact that we're not owed a darn thing. And we also just have to be happy with what we're doing at the end of the day.
Right.
Because if that, you know, we don't reach that high end goal that we want to reach, we have to be okay with that. You have to love the work in order to, because at the end of the day, even if you do go in a really high place, most of the time you're not there long.
That's another good point.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that story. They're like, you know, I talk about, you know, someone that just gets that one big album in the mainstream, and then their next album was a flop, and then that was it for their quote unquote mainstream career, but they continue on. You know?
I think Warped Tour is probably a good example of where a lot of bands, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it seemed to be sort of a mark that a lot of bands got a little taste of. You know, you did well for yourself in the market that you were playing in. You attracted enough attention to yourself, and you were able to jump onto Warped Tour, even if it was for 1 date or 4 dates or 10. But like, that seemed to be a seminal moment for a lot of musicians that I was coming up with. Is, well, we got to play Warped Tour, and I think that's excellent. And I feel like if you were able to play on that level, that's something to be totally proud of, because there's like, when you're playing on that level, it's so fleeting, and it's so, you just got to soak it up when you get it. And I never made it. I never made it to Warped Tour playing originals and touring. We got a chance to get on some pretty good bills and some pretty fun shows, but we never got on to even on the 9th stage of Warped Tour. We were playing in some like boozer loser tent for like 14 people. Never made it.
Yeah.
But I knew a lot of people, not a lot, but I knew at least a handful of people that'd be like, yeah, well, you know, back in whatever it was, 2006, we got a chance to play 10 dates on Warped Tour. It was the best experience of my life. And I'm really happy to have heard those stories. And it's like excellent, you know?
Yeah, I got the chance.
You got to do it.
One time.
See,
one time. Just one date.
I bet it was unforgettable.
It opened a lot of doors in my mind. I'm like, wow, so this is how it really works.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's not as glamorous as
I feel like
as
I feel like Feature Presentation might have made it to Warped Tour.
In 2006. In 2006, Feature Presentation got 4 dates. And in 2008 is when the band I was in, The Projection, played just one date. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's one of those things you just have to be grateful for. And because how many people would have killed to have that experience, you know? So
absolutely.
It's just, you gotta soak up those moments when you can, because the rough days are there, and it's not to be pessimistic. It's just life.
But I mean, for me, like along the way for me, those type of experiences were definitely a big part of my growing up. Because like many musicians, you know, I always remember listening to Lupe on his podcast when he was down here. He talked about how he spent years playing punk rock music.
Yes. Well, let's talk about, let's get to the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, you got to go back to my very first experiences as a musician was as a drummer. I spent 5 years playing drums in punk rock bands. I started when I was 14 years old, which would have been probably, let's see here, 1996. Oh, I guess I was 15. So I was 15, it's 1996, and I always felt like I had rhythm in my bones. You know, I don't know how to explain it. I remember watching drummers and just thinking, boy, if I ever had a chance to sit behind an actual drum kit, I know that I could do it. I know that I could figure it out. And I got that chance. I went to a buddy's house for one of these like bro sleepovers, and his dad had a drum set down in the basement. I asked him, "Oh, can I play it?" And he was like, "Sure." We didn't even have drumsticks. Went and like sawed off some drumsticks from like a broom handle.
Was he not a frequent player anymore? And that's why he had no drumsticks. They were an old, ratty old drum set that had been sitting there for years. So collecting dust, pretty much.
My friend, his name was Billy. His dad was this like local legend player up in like the Northwest Indiana area. He played for years in bands up there. And so, yeah, he just had an old kit, and exactly what I'm saying. Like, I just sat there. It's like, I started being like, and they were like, "Are you sure you've never done this before?" I'm like, I've never sat behind a drum kit. As my foot's like, and I start playing a beat. And
if it was 2004, they would have said, "Oh, you should try out for American Idol."
Exactly. Hey man, have you ever thought about drummer? No. So yeah, I got the rhythm. I got the rhythm in me, and then because those people were very generous, they let me take the drum kit.
Oh, dude, that's so cool. Like what was his dad's name?
His name was Jackie Virgin was his name.
Do you remember any of the bands?
I know that one band was called Easy Louise. And then when we were in high school and then on into like just out of high school, they were called the Fault Line Band. They were doing country, but like so well done. So well done. He was just a phenomenal guitar player. And back then they were doing modern like 90s country, which might have seemed at the time like it was a little passé or a little cheesy. But if they came out right now doing the material that they were doing back then, places would go nuts. Country music fans love that throwback country sound right now. Like we slip in some of that classic 90s country, and it's like throwing Molly at the crowd. They love it. So
yeah, it's that generation, generation's time right
it is.
Now. Yeah,
it's probably has the same nostalgic vibe that 90s pop and rock music has to their audience. You throw in, George Strait, Garth Brooks, John Michael Montgomery, you throw that stuff at a crowd after they've had a couple of drinks and they just love it. So
yeah.
So I take this, like we have the sleepover that, where we spend the night probably eating pizza and watching HBO. And then I take this drum kit home with me.
What are you watching on HBO? That's what I want to know.
And I show up in the garage with my parents are just like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's a drum set. I'm a drummer now." Okay. So thanks. I'll be in the garage with my drum set.
And what was their reaction?
It was just sort of the stunned, like, you're a drummer now? I'm like, yeah, I'm in a band and I'm a drummer now. So figure it out.
And the noisiest instrument of all.
Thankfully, the garage was separate from the house. So
that's a help. Yeah.
We were able to secure me an actual pair of drumsticks, and then.
And you grew up in Moments, right?
No,
you didn't grow up in Beecher.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just
not
up the road.
too far. Yeah.
No, just up the road a piece. And so yeah, I played in punk bands, and like we the first year we couldn't, there was nowhere to play a show publicly. The only shows that we were able to get on were like house parties and stuff like that.
Right.
For real, like
just like the 90s teenager movies. You think of like Can't Hardly Wait. Yeah, that was
exactly
the band in that movie was like, "Oh yeah, we got our first gig.
Did anybody order a love burger?" Well done. It's a great scene. So yeah, like somebody would like procure a keg and then have a barn party, and there'd be like 3 screaming loud punk bands playing like crate amps and cheap guitars and 1 speaker and 1 little PA box and 1 microphone and just basically just making noise. And I mean, we did that for years and years. And then while playing the drums, I started to kind of drift into guitar really slowly. You know, I had buddies that would kind of show me a guitar chord a little bit here and there. So I did sort of a Dave Grohl evolution of moving away from the drum kit and making my way towards the front of the stage and started playing guitar and singing. And then that's like right around the year 2000, somewhere in there. I guess I was probably about 18 or 19 years old. We, with these guys that I was playing all this punk music with, we came through and did the Battle of the Garage Bands with King Music in 2000, 01, and 02. We did it 3 years in a row. We never won.
What was your name at that time?
In the year 2000, we came up with a new name for every single show.
Oh, okay.
So the first year we played, we were called Watterson, named after Bill Watterson, who wrote for Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, okay.
The first year was Watterson. I think we placed 5th. The second year we were called Estudiantes en Fuego.
Okay.
The students on fire. I don't remember what we placed that year, but we didn't win. And then the third year was my favorite, White Hot Riot.
Oh my gosh.
White Hot Riot, but with like the letter Y and like an umlaut to make it rhyme. And that year we placed second. We placed second that year. We came real close. I think we even might have wound up with a cash prize or something like that. But it was a great experience for a lot of reasons, working and doing that event, because first it got me introduced to Dave King, which was like a lifelong friendship after that. From working with him at the Battle of the Garage Bands and then becoming a customer. I started going to King Music in probably 99 and then forging this sort of customer-owner relationship with Dave where he became this, like he was just a great person to talk to and work with. You know, he's just an absolute joy of a human being. And then, you know, sort of working with Dave for years, and then I got to, you know, get to know his kids and just become more immersed in the local music, in the local music store and their family. And so his oldest son, did he play in, he's got to be around your age. He is. And he's definitely a friend. He's actually, he's pretty close to my neighbor at this point. He lives right up the road from me. That's Joe.
Okay. Yeah, and, Joe.
And Joe, I think I met Joe probably through other avenues, through different friends.
Okay. I thought maybe, I don't know as much about Joe, obviously, as like, you know, Dan or Ben, but I would imagine Joe might have been in some bands around that time, and maybe you guys played shows together or something.
Not to my knowledge, but I did meet Joe through, I think it was Adam Young. While I was up in Chicago is how I met Joe. And he was living, I'm sure he remembers, he was living way on the west side of Chicago. And I just remember him telling me where he lived. I'm like, how do you do that? He's like, man, you got to make it work. Because he lived in a rough part of town. But it was sort of the laying the foundation for aspects of my life as it exists today, because Ben is just a huge part of my life now. He's become a really close friend, but he's also the lead guitar player in my band. And he, you know, getting into that friendship and then ultimately working that band probably started years ago as I became a customer in the store. And then from being a customer, I got to know him sort of on the fringe, and then learning that he's also a musician, that he's a competent guitar player. He played in bands around town. And then we in Black Cadillac used to hire Ben to sub for our lead guitar player if he couldn't make a show. Then Ben became sort of an understudy. And so then getting a chance to play with him on that level back probably would have been 2012, 2013, 2014. I could see that like he is just he's an outstanding player, and he's a great performer, and he's just a really, really cool dude. So then, you know, flash forward 4 or 5 years when I decide that it's, you know, with help from the other players in the band, which would have been Eric Carroll and Jake Zimmerman, when it came time to pick a guitar player, or ask a guitar player, he was kind of a no-brainer. I'm like, we'll see. We'll see if he wants to do it because he's definitely capable. He's definitely qualified. So then that's how it all kind of fell into place for that. But like many players, I had years and years of straight up punk rock in my blood and in my bones. So
what were some of, besides the bands that you had for the King Music Battle of the Bands, what were some of the other names? And I would imagine at some point you probably played Earthworm Empire, right?
Kankakee? I never played Earthworm, but I did go there.
That's surprising. Okay.
I did go there for shows, but I never got a chance to play there. Okay, so the band that I played in while I was in high school, I graduated in 99. So from 97 to 99, I played in a band called the Elroys, like Elroy Jetson. And it was me and 3 other guys from Beecher. We played, like I said, we did a couple of house parties, like graduation parties and stuff like that. And then I think the very first public show that we played as a band was in March of 1997 in Kankakee at the Wicked Brew. And the Wicked Brew was, at that time, probably one of, if not several, places around Kankakee that hosted up-and-coming bands and shows.
Where was Wicked Brew? I've never heard of that one.
All I know is that it was right off of Schuyler, somewhere. Honestly, I don't know exactly where. I know it was somewhere off Schuyler Avenue.
Someone's listening to this right now. They're like, it's on Schuyler, and
somebody who frequented the Wicked Brew will probably, once this comes out, they'll probably comment and be like, the Wicked Brew was located here.
Right. Like, I've never heard of that place. And I'm kind of surprised.
So the show, I remember the show it was us. It was a band called the Rodmans, and then it was a band called Mike. They were called Mike.
Like M-I-C?
Nope, M-I-K-E.
Oh, okay.
It was 3 dudes, and they were all named Mike. So the band was called Mike.
Yeah.
They were the headliner, and I don't honestly remember a whole lot about them, but I know that there was a band called Mike. So we did that, and then we directed some of our efforts a little further north. There was a really, like, the Southland of Chicago. If you were a punk rocker, then you made your way to Homewood and you played at a place called Off the Alley. And that was, throughout the 90s, that was the spot for a lot of young, sort of anybody in the punk genre. You were trying to get into that place to play. It was an all ages room. I can't remember exactly how big it was. Maybe it held 300 people, 400 people.
Was it strictly a venue, or was it something else as well?
It was the back of a record store.
Okay. Because I remember for a while I thought there was a place in Homewood. Of course, this would have been some years later, and I wasn't sure if there was association, but there used to be like a comic book store that had like a back room. They used to have shows, I think, in Homewood, but it sounds like that's a different place.
Probably close. So yeah, there was a record store called Record Swap, and then behind it was Off the Alley, and they would do a very traditional style of show. It'd be 3-4 band bill.
Yeah.
They had a house provided microphone, speakers, PA. You just had to bring your amps. There'd be, I think it was $6 for 4 bands, and then the bands would get a little payout. They had it was a bar, but it was a bar that just served like pop and juice. They had like a little bartender. It was just some emo kid back there like, can I help you? Some totally pouty little kid back there like, what do you want? Like, can we just get some Canadian clubs and maybe some Skittles?
Yeah.
But man, like this was such a huge part of my growing up, because to go there, to participate in shows there was something. It was something really, really special for us at the time. Because you were listening to new bands, you were listening to stuff you hadn't heard before, and we were learning. We were learning how to function in a band. You know,
and you're writing your own songs. I know we haven't hinted at that enough, but I mean, you're writing your own material. I mean, maybe you were playing some covers here and there, but
never.
Like in that scene, in the punk scene, usually like you're writing your own stuff. You know, this is.
What you would probably do is if you were good for a 40-minute set, you would play 6, 7 of your own, and you would be maybe, and I mean that's a stressed maybe, slip a cover in there. And if you did a cover, it was probably something very different than what you were doing. Like, it's hard to explain, but like we used to cover "Sea of Love" was the song that we did a cover of, and we just did like a punk version of it, made it real fast and crazy.
And that's something that the punk genre has been doing for the rock genre. We love to take pop songs and make them punk. You know,
but it was definitely a big learning experience, and it was very meaningful for my upbringing to learn how to be in a band, how to work together with musicians, how to make press kits, and how to use a silk screen to make shirts, and getting into recording studios and doing all the things that you have to do to be in a band. And all of it was all this really rugged learning experience for a very, very young mind. But it shaped me in the sense that it sort of picked my career path in a way. Well, at least in my mind it did, because I was like, I want to do this. I want to go be a musician, and I want to go record bands. And I want to work in a studio. It's what sent me to Columbia College, which is where I went to school. This was that important to me in my life at that time. Which was
so you graduated in what, 2000?
Unfortunately, I never graduated. I graduated high school in 99. Okay. I went to my community college up in Chicago Heights called Prairie State.
Yes.
I did 2 years at Prairie State, and then I transferred up to Columbia. And, you know, it's sort of a cliche story these days, but, you know, I didn't take good care of my finances, and I botched my student loans, and I sort of ran out of money. You know, it's an expensive school, and I was sort of undereducated, and I certainly didn't have the funds. I was borrowing money to pay for it, and I just got in over my head. And as much as I loved the school and I loved the educational experience of being there, eventually I couldn't afford it. And so I did 1 year up there. I have 3 years of credits for schooling that I just never went back and finished, because then life happens along the way. And then, you know, I want to get pulled in a bunch of different other directions. And I joined a new band, and we started touring, and the touring schedule and that band prohibited me from being real serious about school and going semester for semester. And I just made some choices. I'm like, I learned a lot about the aesthetics of live sound, and what, you know, how to work a mixer, and where to place mics and use DIs. Like, I got the experience and the knowledge that I needed in order to keep moving ahead as a musician. So So you were going to Columbia to learn, like, to be an engineer? Yeah, to be a live sound engineer. Okay. So that was my school. Like, I took a couple different classes. One with, I think his name is Jack Alexander, I think is his name. He's a really prominent, it's been close to 20 years now. So, but I think his name was Jack Alexander. He's really, really famous sound engineer. And I got into one of his classes, which was a super good experience to learn. You know, he was a real hands-on guy. Had a kind of a brass personality. Brass personality, and you know, sound guys are kind of prickly by nature. And he definitely fit the part. But he was so great to learn off of, you know, and he had a big booming voice and stuff. But I learned a great deal, and the things that I learned at that school at that time, I've taken with me for the last 20 years. You know, that's not something that everybody can say about their degrees. Like, you go to school for 4 years, you take a diploma, and then you don't ever apply that to your trade. But I did 1 year, and I got enough experience out of that for everything that I've done musically since then. So it was a good year. It was definitely a good year. I was going to say, so yeah, you get the 1 year in at Columbia. You didn't end up finishing, but obviously you gained a lot. So what band was it that you joined at that time and started being very serious with? It wasn't Deconstructing Jim. It was. It was Deconstructing Jim. So yeah, that would have been 2002. So that was 2002. I was 21 years old. I had hair. Back then. I hear you. I'm losing mine too. I had some long hair, and I was playing. Like, this was a lot of people. It was a dream opportunity for me at the time to be like, the guy I was working with, Jeff Julian, he's a great friend. He's been a friend for over 20 years. He's a solid guy, and he's an artist, and he's a very, very talented musician. And we sort of mapped out a plan for what he wanted to do, which was, he wasn't, goes back to what I was talking about earlier. You set a realistic goal for yourself, and then you attempt to achieve that goal. And that's what he did. He said, look, we're not looking to be trash a hotel room rich here. We're looking at sustaining ourselves for a couple of months of tours, come back, work, and then go back out on the road. You press an album, you sell that album. You go to a town, you sell some CDs and some merch, and then you get some mail, get some people on your mailing list, and then you come home, and then you go back to that town and you build. And then you sort of make like a spider web of the Midwest, and you spread out and you hit these high market towns. You get on college radio and you try to build onto this sort of indie rock scene. And there's a lot of tools, and there's a lot of things that you can resource. At the time, there was a lot of resources. There was local magazines like Illinois Entertainer. There's these rags that will post your show information without having to buy an ad.
Yeah, and you mentioned college radio. College radio used. I don't think radio in general isn't as big, but college radio used to be huge for breaking new bands.
Yeah, go back to 2002, 2003. Like he would. And Jeff came from he had a broadcasting background. He went to school for it. So like he knew, like if we were going to book a show in Urbana, that he could reach out to the college station. I think it was WEFT, but like he would be able to coordinate where we would be playing at a show in Urbana on a Saturday night, or I'm sorry, like a Friday night, and then we would stop by the radio station and do a 15-minute interview, talk about the show, plug the website, do a song, and be like, okay, there's a Deconstructing Jim. That's Matt and Jeff, and they're going to be at the Brass Rail tonight. Just come on out, $7 or 7 p.m., $5. Like huge promo would be like and he would do that all over when every show or town that we would go to, he would at least try to get us a lead in to that town, whether it was on a college radio station or somewhere that we could plug and promote. Like he was very, very smart about doing that. And he got some sort of road experience from other bands teaching him and showing him the ropes. So we did that for years. Like the very first tour that we did, we were gone for like 3 weeks. Like he booked us a 3-week tour when we just recorded a little 5-song EP, and we pressed it ourselves. And like
burning CDs,
we designed it ourselves, everything. Yeah. It was completely DIY. We made the jackets for the only thing we didn't press were the shirts, but everything else we did all by ourselves. And, we had our girlfriends hammering this stuff out for us. And we jumped into a Honda Civic and threw 2 guitars and a speaker in the back, and we hit the road. And we kept doing that for years. And eventually we acquired a bass player and a drummer, Brian Can on drums and Trevor Hoger on bass. And then we spent the next couple years recording albums and touring. That was all we did. Come back to our day jobs for as long as we had to, and then get back out on the road. And it was a great experience. Like if you have the capability of doing something like that, I would highly encourage musicians that have a thirst for knowledge to get out there and, experience a little bit of that before it gets too late and you settle down, pop out a couple kids, because all of those life choices make it harder.
Yes,
because that's what happens.
It does. I mean, I have met people along the way in my musical career. So I can't really call it a career. I'll say journey. And there have been some that are married, have kids, and they've gotten out there. But yes, it is harder to do. But it really is, even if you don't end up like pursuing that career for like your whole life, it really just opens up your eyes to a lot of different things. And it's a life-changing experience. And shout out to Brian, by the way, because I play with Brian in St. Jimmy, and we don't play a lot of shows, but I love Brian. Like,
absolutely.
He's one of the reasons I'm so glad that I ended up joining St. Jimmy, because he's such a great dude. Him and I get along so well.
He is.
So
I mean, he stood up in my wedding. He's a very, very good dude, and he's got a great family. He's got a great wife, and yeah, he's got his head screwed on really well, and he's also a heck of a good drummer too.
Yes,
you know,
he is.
On top of being, he's a big Green Day fan, so that was an easy job for him to sink his teeth into, because he likes the material. But even outside of the Green Day catalog, he's really, really smart and versatile on the drums, and that's what I've always liked about him too. He's a good improviser. He's got a lot of stamina back there. So yeah, he's an excellent guy. Very, very good dude.
So, you're doing Deconstructing Jim. You are, I mean, what was the ultimate goal with Deconstructing Jim? I mean, it was to make it, right? I mean,
well, like I said, Jeff was the singer, guitar player, manager.
He was the heart and soul.
He was.
Yeah.
And definitely learned a lot from him, but he set a very achievable goal. Making it to some degree was definitely in the books, or sorry, in the works. Like, he definitely wanted to make it, but he didn't define making it as, signing to a major label and working out of a, $500,000 budget in some fancy studio and, assembling a tour opening for Fleetwood Mac. Like, his version of making it was simply to have a band that sustains itself. That was what he wanted. He wanted like a job at home that he could work while he was here, and then go out on the road for a month and have the shows turn enough of a profit to where the band would support itself. That's all he wanted. He just, you got a Tupperware container full of shirts. You've got a cardboard box full of CDs. You got a big merch board. You get on these tours with the right bands. You have you have a guarantee that is to be met by the club, plus points when you make more than that. And then you sell the absolute heck out of your merch. And then when you come home, you lay out the money and say, here's our expenses, and then this is the money that we get to keep, and we'll use that towards the next record. And that's how it was all meant to be. And that was his way of saying, here's how we make it. And, we worked really, really hard to achieve that goal. That was, goal. And some of the tours that we did made money, and then some of them were, a little light, frankly, because, some clubs would honor their agreements and pay you. And then sometimes it'd be like, it was a light night and we didn't make enough money. So here's $50.
Yeah.
And, 4 Pabst Blue Ribbons and a pizza. And then that's got to get you from Tulsa, Oklahoma to, Wichita, Kansas. Good luck, guys. And then pretty soon we're dipping into our own pockets going, okay, I haven't had a shower in 3 days, so let's stay in a flea bag motel and, get to sleep in a bed tonight. And like,
you are bringing back so many memories from talking about, these tours to like even before talking about playing in punk rock bands in the local Kankakee scene. It's just bringing up so many different memories right now.
It's so critically important to me. Like, it's made me the person that I am, because you really there's a deafening silence of playing to an empty room where you are literally entertaining a bartender and on a Tuesday night. And, you are hoping that 3 people walk in and you can sell a t-shirt just so you can make it to the next town. Like, when you have done that, when you have played to nobody, then that will keep this humility about you for the rest of your life, that any musician will totally relate to that, and they'll understand that. You could pull Dave Grohl off of a stage in front of 40,000 people and be like, well, tell us about the early days when you played to nobody, and he'll remember it. And
he'll talk
know
about
exactly what it was like to sit in the back of a van with no heat, where you're like sitting on a drum case and you're, eating White Castle and drinking hams, because we all did it.
Yeah, man. So what are some stories you're talking about trying to make it just to the next show? And I mean, that's what it was. The 3 or 4 tours that I did, obviously, because it's all do it yourself, DIY, you're just trying to make it to the next town. I remember on our very first tour with the Projection, we were in Florida. and we had run out of money. And we needed to make it to New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
And we were in Orlando. So that's a pretty big... I don't remember the mileage, but that's a bit... you've got, 2 states in between the two?
Let's see, you got to go across Alabama and then Mississippi.
Yeah.
So, you got to...
So,
that's
it's
a long one.
Yeah, so I had to sell one of my guitars. I had brought 2 electrics with me, and, one I kept as a backup.
Of course.
And so, I went to Guitar Center, and of course, if you're selling it for them to resell, they're going to give you half.
Oh, you ain't getting anything for that.
But, so I got half of what the guitar was worth, and it was like, I don't know, it was like $300 or something like that is what I got for it.
But how did that make you feel? Was that heartbreaking?
It was heartbreaking, man.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I think we ended up doing some driving, and I think we ended up we ended up in Tampa.
Okay.
In Tampa, Florida is where we stopped at a Guitar Center, and it was a Schecter PT, which for those that don't know what that is, it's Schecter's version of a Fender Telecaster.
Oh, okay.
Like it looks exactly like a Fender Telecaster, pretty much. And actually PT stands for Pete Townsend. Anyway, so yeah, I got half of what it was worth. And we made it to New Orleans, but yeah. And then of course the show in New Orleans wasn't very good, but
that's how it is.
That's
I've got
what are some stories from?
Oh man,
yeah, I'm sure you've got.
I'm trying to think of
good
because we did some really.
Everyone's always their tour stories from their early days are always good.
See, I didn't have a chance to vet any of these stories, so I can't talk about some of the stuff that happened without some sort of the best story of all would be a night in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Okay, so this would have been we ran off it was like a 6-day run. I think we left on a Tuesday and we were wrapping up on a Sunday. Okay, so it was the second to last day in Cedar Falls. It was on a Saturday night, and it was a bar called, I think it was called The Reverb, if I'm not mistaken. It's been many years, but
yeah.
Oh man,
we always did well in Cedar Rapids in Iowa.
To get to Cedar Falls, you had to drive through Cedar Rapids. So we definitely drove through, but we never played in Cedar Rapids. So Cedar Falls is another hour north, I think.
I was going to say, I think I've passed through Cedar Falls on the way to Minnesota.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah. But I can't remember I think it's called The Reverb. But there's some things that I do remember about this place. It's a beautiful venue. Big room, and the entire the top trim of the room was lined with Jägermeister bottles, empty Jägermeister bottles. So if you looked up to the top from one corner all the way around 360 degrees was all Jägermeister bottles.
Wow.
It was pretty impressive. Big stage, big light show. Also, the club was on the second floor. So if you had to haul an Ampeg 810 bass cabinet, you were just in absolute nightmare territory. But we
and you probably had one of those.
I think we did. I really do.
Because everyone had one back in the 2000s.
Okay, so
or the 90s.
Okay, so it's me and Jeff and Brian Can on drums, and we had a sub bass player. Because our bass player Trevor was a construction worker, couldn't join us on that tour. The sub bass player is a guy from the area, and we're going to leave his name off
out.
this.
Okay, yeah, we'll leave his name
We'll just
out.
call him. Let's just call him Bob.
Bob, all right. So Bob, the bass player, the sub bass player.
It's the end of the night. I think we played first or second. It's like a 4-band bill. And since we were coming up to the end of the tour, Bob was broke. And I was bankrolling him drinks at all the bars because he came through in the clutch, last minute, to get us for us to make the tour. He learned all our material. We never even practiced. It was just, he was doing a good job for us in the clutch. And so I think that night I was just buying him some drinks and getting him a little boozed up, let's just say.
Yeah.
And he was a single guy, and we're out on the road. We're 180 miles from home, and he's getting real friendly with some gals, and which is something that happens when you're out playing. You're in some strange towns.
It does happen.
You're in some strange towns, and you got one night. So he knows that he has a very, very tight window in order to make whatever he thinks is going to happen. So he comes over to us, and we're loaded out into the van. We're already loaded out, and we've got a long drive ahead of us. But since it's the second to last day on the road, Bob's been real gracious. Jeff extends some courtesy to him and says, "Okay, we're going to let you try to make this happen, but we got to be, we set some time parameters." I don't remember specifically what the time parameters were, but he decides, okay, great. Let's just, for example's sake, let's say you got to be done by 1 a.m. basically. I don't remember what it was, but he was like, "We'll do this for you. We'll take you back to these girls' house, but at 1 a.m. we got to get back on the road." No problem. Bob's toasted. And
oh God,
we get there, and I come to find out that what he's talking about is a mother and a daughter. This isn't like a couple of college co-eds. He's got a mom and a daughter. First of all, I'm like, what is this mom doing at the show with the daughter? And what is Bob, who does he think where is he going with this? He is on nobody's schedule. He is inside their house, and he's just treating this like there are not 3 musicians sitting outside losing their patience.
I was just gonna say, so you're just chilling outside. in the van.
Now, this is on some side street in Cedar Falls. We're in a driveway. There's a car to our right. There's no car to our left. It's like a 3-person, like 1, 2, and 3. There's supposed to be 3 cars side by side. We're in the middle. There's a car here, and there's nothing here. And it's quiet. Like you could hear a mouse squeak. It's so quiet. And it's one of those nights where it's just eerily calm, and we're running out of patience. So for some reason, Jeff had delegated me to be the liaison. So he's like,
of course, because you're the one that gave him the liquid courage.
I guess I brokered the deal. I'm like, so Jeff looks back and goes, "Okay, Matt, you need to go in there and tell him if he's gonna seal the deal, he's got to do it now, and we got to get going." So I go inside, and it's what you think what you expect to see. It's like he's sitting in between these 2 girls. He's got a one on each arm, and he's got a couple of drinks on the table.
And this is a mom and a daughter. Oh my God.
So I'm like, "Bob," and I start kind of doing the thing where I'm tapping my wrist, and he gets up and he takes me down the hall, and he's like, "I'm like this close. I'm like this close, man. I'm so close. I'm so close." And so I'm starting to get frustrated. So we walk back out, and I get back in the van. And now
what did you? You didn't drag him out of there?
I said, "Come on, chop chop.
Yeah.
We're running out of time."
Yeah.
And then he's begs for a little more time. I'm this close. I'm this close. So I go back out. I go back outside, and I'm like, it's not happening. He doesn't want to leave. I don't know what to do. And out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, like we're sitting there in the dark. Remember, eerily calm, very quiet night.
Oh no.
Bob's inside. He's got a mother and a daughter inside the house. The car next to us starts out of nowhere. Now remember, we've been sitting there for quite some time.
Yeah, right.
Thinking we are completely alone. Whoever was in that car had been in that car. Had not moved.
It wasn't a remote start.
No, there was a human being in that car who'd been sitting there just as long as us, probably longer, watching them inside and watching us. And this was like some souped up muscle car. Like there was a game. There was a game that was real popular at the time called Twisted Metal. It was like a PlayStation game where you had souped up cars that would fight each other.
It was like a demolition. Yeah.
And that's all we could think was, I'm like, dude, is Twisted Metal sitting right next to us? And he's like revving up and laying, like gassing up, getting real loud. And he's got like those undercarriage lights, like neon undercarriage lights. And he backs up onto the street and neutral drops. So he revs the engine up as hard as it will go and then forces it into gear, which causes the back tires to spin and smoke and then floors it down the road. He's making so much noise. He's just screaming. And the three of us, me, Brian, and Jeff, our hearts just start pounding. Like, what in the world was that? And what was he doing there? We've got more questions than we have answers. So Jeff turns back around and goes, probably with some expletives like, get him the F out of here right now. We're leaving. Because we didn't want to know who that was, and we didn't want to know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then that faint engine sound off in the distance, because when you're the engine's flying away, it's like, and then you can hear, like he's coming back. So then we're like, dude, he's coming back, and he just flies past us, 80, 100 miles an hour, and he just keeps running back and forth down that street at high velocity.
That is obnoxious.
Until I ran in and I physically grabbed the guy and pulled him out, with him still insisting, hey, man, I'm almost there. I'm like, right there. I'm like, right there. I'm like, you're not right there. And we're getting out of here. Twisted Metal is about to, like, I'm just thinking,
rip
like,
us in half,
big
like a
giant
tin can.
Robot arms are going to come out of this truck and start beating on our old van. This is a tour van.
Yeah.
So he, like, on the third pass, we got Bob out of there and we threw him in the back of the van and we sped away as fast as we could with no knowledge. I think when I went in to get him, I think I remember one of them saying that it was an ex-boyfriend or something. It was, oh, that's just so-and-so. Like, it was a jilted lover of some sort.
I was going to say, I was thinking a husband maybe, but, somebody.
But we were absolutely quaking in our boots and we had to get out of there. And we have, we've enjoyed the details of that story very much over the years. That was seriously, like right now, that was 15 years ago. And I can still feel that panic in my chest right now, just talking about that. Because, I've had a lifetime of experience since then to look back and just think how recklessly stupid that was. How recklessly stupid it was to go to a complete stranger's house in a town where we knew nobody. We didn't know anyone there. We didn't know who these people were. We didn't have a single contact anywhere. I don't even think I had we all had cell phones, but like we were just sitting ducks.
Yeah.
Completely sitting ducks at that point. Just so recklessly stupid. So yeah, that was I'm sure I could think of a million different crazy stories.
That's a really good one.
That was so wild.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, that's a hell of a story.
The bottom line is, definitely, younger folks should definitely enjoy the fun that is being a touring musician. These days, phones these days could keep you so much more entertained.
Oh, yeah.
In the back of a tour van
than
what we had. I probably was reading a Entertainment Weekly magazine and, we have no entertainment. But now, like, you could listen to podcasts. You could watch Netflix or Hulu. Like, imagine that trip from Tampa to New Orleans today. How you could occupy your time as opposed to just sitting there staring out the window, eating a bag of chips. So yeah,
I sold my guitar.
Oh man. So did you ever reacquire a Schecter?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Does it stick in your craw? Like, do you want to get that guitar back?
I mean, I wasn't like completely in love with it, I mean, I liked it a lot, but it wasn't, there was no like huge attachment to it other than the fact that, I had to sell it for half of what it was worth.
That's true.
Because, you're in a tight pinch. It's not like, I'm going to set up camp here for a few days and we'll see how much I can get for it on Craigslist.
Yeah, I'm just
something.
wondering, this was a 4-piece band, right?
We were traveling as a trio at the time.
okay.
We were traveling in a minivan, and we crammed all of our stuff in the minivan.
I'm just wondering, why did you have to be the one to fall on the sword? Is it only because you had the extra?
I was the leader of the band. I just like Jeff and Deconstructing Jim. I kind of managed things. So that's kind of, what,
I see what you're saying, because ultimately that was probably one of the deciding or motivating factors for me to leave that band.
I was going to say, what happened to Deconstructing Jim?
Now, some of this is speculation and conjecture on my part. Like, me and him are friends and will always be friends, and I love him very dearly. But I have my opinion about the way things were going, and I'm sure he has a different perspective or opinion about it. But from my perspective, at the time, this would have been the end of 2008 going into 2009, I viewed the project as becoming insoluble. Like, we were sinking and we were never coming back out. And he was a great leader and a great manager. And there were times where he was making personal choices and personal sacrifice. He was taking extra hits for himself in order to make things work for the band. Like, he would shoulder responsibilities, paying for gas to shows or recording expenses. And then he would say things like, I'll pay for it. And then when we go back out, I'll pay myself back, like that. And I was having a really hard time constantly dealing with that and having that. He never hung it over my head. It's not like he was like, don't forget about this bill. Like, he wasn't like that. I just felt like if we were gonna make it, and I'm using air quotes, like, if we were gonna make it, we would have done so based off of the success of the first EP or the first 2 EPs or the first full-length record, or with the return visits to some of the touring spots that we were hitting habitually. We were going down to St. Louis 3 or 4 times a year. We were going to Champaign. We were going up to Wisconsin. We were forming all these friendships and making all these connections with all these different musicians. And I just didn't see the forward progress anymore. And I was making all these different moves in my life about possibly wanting to have a baby and wanting to settle down. And I wanted to, buy a house. And, I was doing all those, like, late into my 20s, going into my 30s life choices. And if I felt like we had successfully accomplished what we'd set out to do, then it would have been a no-brainer to stay in. But I was looking at it like, we're going up to Joliet to play at the bar that we've been playing at for the last 3 years, and we still have to almost twist arms to get people to come out in order to make it profitable for the bar to even hire us after 3 years. Like, I have to call in favors to people or else we're not going to make any money. I'm like, after this long, I think it's just time that we quit. Like, I just don't want to do it anymore. It's not that I didn't love it, because I certainly did. It was my love for the music and the people that kept me in it as long as I did. But at that time of my life, I was getting pulled into some different directions. And cover music was one of them. And I can't deny that.
I was going to say, that isn't that around the same time that Black Cadillac came to be? And I want to say, you're talking about 2008, 2009.
Yes.
I think, and we could have met before that possibly, but I know for sure you and I met around that time when Bishop McNamara was doing that. What do they call it? MacFest?
MacFest.
Yeah, you remember MacFest? You remember meeting me there? You know?
Where would I have met you at MacFest?
So I was in charge of booking bands on, like, I don't know if I can't remember if they called it the family stage, or it was the stage that was in front of the circular part of Mac. And it was just a trailer. Excuse me. It was just a semi-trailer bed. It was used as a stage. But I remember you and I had to coordinate on some sound gear or something like that. Because I think Deconstructing Jim or Black Cadillac was playing in like the beer tent area. So maybe you don't remember that. And at the time you were working for Mussman.
I was. And Kevin Mussman was one of the people on the committee. I remember now.
Yeah.
So this would have been the year 2007 and 2008. Now, 2007, they were both wildly different. Those are the only 2 years that I recall that they brought MacFest back. Now, MacFest it wasn't their idea. MacFest had been a previously ran festival many, many years ago, and they had decided to bring it back, like just bring it back to life. So they ran it in 07 and 08. In 07, they took a huge amount of donor money and hired a bunch of Nashville acts to come up, including Lee Brice, of all people.
Oh, it was Lee. Okay.
They had Lee Brice play on Friday night, and he was just right on the cusp of breaking.
Right.
Right at that point, he had written a song for Garth Brooks, and he wasn't allowed to talk about it. But he came and played MacFest, and then like 2 months later, he breaks. And then he has this really successful country career. The Saturday night, they had the headliner was called Bombshell, and they were sort of a gimmicky country band that had two like good-looking blondies that were singing, and they had a line dance called the Bombshell Stomp.
I kind of remember. Yeah, I do remember Bombshell. Okay, yeah, that's coming back to me now as well.
They had a bunch of other acts too.
I know Lupe played one year.
Yes. So they had the family stage, and then they had the main stage with the big production, and then they had a little 8x8 beer tent stage. And now Kevin, being as resourceful as he is, was like, we want to spend all this money on getting this Nashville talent, but at the same time, we want to get some of our local talent in this too. So Matt, I want your band Deconstructing Jim to play this event. And I'm like, Kevin, that's a terrible idea. And he's like, I know your band is good, and I want you guys to open on the main stage. And I'm like, I really appreciate you, taking going to bat for us on this, but we are not going to mix very well with our sort of bombastic indie rock sound up against
Nashville
gimmicky country.
Yeah.
And he didn't care. He was like, I'm adamant. I want you guys to take the gig on the main stage. We're going to pay you. It's a paid gig. So we did it, and we took it, and it was quite an experience. I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome to be able to play in front of a big crowd of people and have that kind of fun and energy and work on that mega sound stage and all that. It was fun, but really we stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Greg Schneider was the entertainment. It was Greg. So it was Lupe first and then Greg. I remember that because that was another thing. Is that Greg Schneider was Kevin's wife's cousin. So he got Greg to come down and play on the little beer garden stage. And it rained like the dickens that day too. I remember that.
Yes.
It just poured.
Yes, I remember there being a lot of rain.
It poured.
Yeah.
But then the following year in 2008, they tried it again, and they chose a different approach.
Yeah, and I can't remember if I was involved that year or not.
That was the year they had the Silhouettes as the Friday night headliner. Does that ring a bell?
Maybe I wasn't involved. Maybe I was just involved in that first year.
But then there's an important distinction that has to be made here, because technically speaking, Black Cadillac as a band didn't start until January of 2009. Although we were playing together at that time, we were just going by a different name.
Okay.
We were going by the name Guitar Hero Live.
Oh my gosh. So you were selling yourself as... And I mean, Guitar Hero was huge at that time. So no wonder why you went with that name.
It's just, this is just an interesting part of my life. It's an interesting part of my musical journey. I was working with Jeff and doing the DJing thing, and By that time, Brian had quit. Brian quit in like 06 because he got into a master's program for school. He wanted to elevate his status as a teacher, so he got into a master's program and he couldn't balance it, and he had to leave the band. He's working full time. I totally get that. And then Trevor, same thing. He was like, I can't tour anymore. I got this construction job. We all kind of parted ways. I moved over to bass. I started playing bass. I played bass for like 4 years. And we picked up Brennan Chenard on drums.
Yes.
So, but Brennan was an excellent drummer, and he was breathing new life into the band. And ultimately, Jeff and Brennan have gone on, and they still play together.
Yeah.
This is all these years later, and Brennan is still Jeff's drummer. But at the time, it was me, Jeff, and Brennan.
And
working.
I think, that at that time when MacFest was going on, that I remember you were the bass player and
correct.
Brennan was playing drums.
That was the lineup at that time.
Yeah.
So, but me and Trevor stayed in contact. You know, we didn't part ways with any hard feelings. And he went he loved playing the original music. He loved having the creative control, and he somehow over the years got hooked up with some people up in the sort of Will County Southland music scene, and he got into covers. I don't know exactly what his transition was, but at one point he started playing in a band called Spank.
Was that like an 80s hair metal? I mean, it sounds.
I don't know what their
Spank.
I don't know what I don't know what their modus operandi was, but when he got hooked up with Spank and started playing,
if I was in that band, I could not bring it to myself to, hey, so you're in a band, what's the name? There's no way I could be like, Spank. I'd have to say it like that. I couldn't just say, we're Spank.
Or like passing that along to your friends like, hey, you want to go see Spank tonight? Like, but hey, I'm going to tell you something, all right? That band was very, very popular, okay? I never saw Spank play, but Trevor got hooked up with these guys, and they're playing big shows up in the sort of Plainfield, Joliet, sort of, York. I don't know if Yorkville, but like they're playing out there, and they're doing some big numbers out there. If if my memory serves me correctly, their lead singer just was like this sort of larger than life character. He had a big personality, he had a good voice, and people just loved him. He was like this big teddy bear type guy, and he worked a crowd really well. And the music that they played was sort of edgy hard rock.
That's what I would expect. Spank.
Like Def Leppard and Buckcherry.
Okay,
like that. But
yeah.
At the time, it gave Trevor some experience as to how to work a cover band, how to manage a cover band. In the same way that, 6-7 years prior, I'm learning how to just be in a band in general and how to do DIY indie rock stuff. Like he was doing the same thing. Like he had ideas. He had ideas on what was going to be successful and what was going to be like these breakthrough cutting edge ideas for a successful cover band. And he didn't stay with Spank very long because eventually he moved on and started making some connections with other people. And along the way, he gets a hold of me, and I wish I knew the date. I don't know exactly. It would have been like fall of 07 sometime. And he calls me up and goes, look, man, I'm doing some stuff with the band. Would you be able to run some sound? I know you've got an engineer background. We have the equipment. We just need you to run it. I said, absolutely. He goes, $200. You help us load in, run the sound, help us load out, and get you a few bucks. And I'm like, absolutely. And then he never calls, and he never hires me. He just questions me. But then that starts the ball rolling. Okay. So it's an important conversation to be had. He's testing me out to see if I'm interested in working with him. And then he calls me again and says, I got a better idea. And he pitches me like it's like he's on TV. He goes, how would you like to make $1,000 a show? This is how he pitches me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I mean, show up at a bar, have a lot of fun, and then take $1,000 home. I'm like $1,000 in my pocket? He goes, well, no, like $250 a piece for 4 people. But for one night of work, doing something you love. And I'm like, I mean, that sounds great. You got to remember, like, I'm used to getting $50, 2 PBRs and a pizza. That was a good night. So this is in all the drinks you can drink and cash in your pocket. And he's like, I've got an idea for a band. You give me a year working with this band and we'll be making a grand show. With your skill as a singer and my connections, I'll get you $1,000 a night. And so I was like, sounds great. And so I committed right then and there. I had one stipulation, which was that I really wanted to do the song Radar Love by Golden Earring. I just loved that song. I'm like, if I'm going to join a cover band, we got to do Radar Love. So that's where GHL comes in, because he is Mr. Networking. He's got all these great ideas. And he had this idea. He was like,
Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero is hot right now at the time.
Yep.
Everybody's playing it. He goes, well, what if I just spit?
Oh, you're all good.
He goes, what if we showed up to a bar and played all the music from the games? Because think of the amount of material you have to draw from. Guitar Hero 1, 2, 3, Aerosmith Guitar Hero, all these different niche bands that have their own version. He goes, you've got all these playlists of songs, popular music. Not only do people know the songs, but they know the solos, they play them, and they're familiar with them. They'll get into it. And he sold us all. It was a great idea. And then we started playing shows, and people started showing up expecting to play the game.
Yeah.
Which is where we screwed up. Seriously, I think it was probably 3 gigs in a row where they would see the flyers for the show, Guitar Hero Live, and they're showing up with controllers going, where's the Guitar Hero?
Mm-hmm.
No. We're just a band that plays the music from the game. What? There's no tournament? There's no tournament tonight.
I mean, that's what I would have thought.
Exactly. So at the end, so from in 2008, we played like 5 or 6 shows, maybe 6 or 7. I don't remember, but it was me and Trevor, and then our drummer was Carrie Ann, and then our guitar player's name was Gary. And then at the end of the year, we had decided that we were going to rebrand for 2009. Like, we're coming up to 2009. We have to come up with a new name. We have to come up with a new logo. We're going to get a photo shoot done. We're going to change everything because we're confusing people with this Guitar Hero thing. It's not working. So we did. And I mean, we had a ton of different ideas for bands, and we settled on Black Cadillac. It was a song, a name that he chose. It was from a, what's that band? Modest Mouse. Modest Mouse has a song called Black Cadillacs. And he just liked the imagery that it conveyed, sort of a dark, ominous, mysterious vibe. And he knew that we could market that. So he was like, we'll all dress in black, and, we'll play this he wanted a very, very specific style of music. He wanted a certain look to the stage, and everything was all very, very carefully laid out to how he wanted it. And it worked. It worked really, really well because people liked the idea. They liked the concept. They liked the music. It was edgy and it was different. And it worked. It worked really well. So we had a lot of good years of success with that band and doing that. So that's what a lot of people know me for. So it's definitely some good memories for me.
Right. I mean, I know that so many people were like, "Oh, Black Cadillac's playing. I got to be." They were obsessed with you.
Yeah.
I remember here in Kankakee County, that's how it was. You were the big name, and
was. Yeah, I think it was a sort of an amalgamation of a lot of different things that all worked together at the same time. The female drummer was a big plus because she was very nice looking, but also a really competent player. She was very skilled. She was a metalhead. So she loved to hit hard. She loved to play fast, smile and twirl the sticks. That made all of our jobs so much easier. I basically just had to get out of the way.
Yeah, right.
Our Gary ended up leaving after 5 months because he was running a business and couldn't keep up. And then we picked up Keith Wollenberg, and Keith was just an absolute juggernaut on guitar. He just Steve Vai, Satriani, Van Halen, just, where you arpeggios across the fretboard, just that sort of guitar acrobatic stuff that just wows. There's such a great show to it, and then Trevor was also as smart as he was on the business side of it in terms of marketing and pushing the band. He was also a phenomenal player. And, he was a sort of a stage dominating player when most bass players just kind of blend in, and he was like right out in front, foot on the monitor, just bobbing his head. Like, it was everything worked really, really well together. And so we had a really good run for a couple years and a lot of success.
And then that ended in the mid 2010s?
We played our last show in September of 2016, which was Mantino Oktoberfest.
Yes, I remember that being your last one.
That was a pretty good night.
There was a huge turnout. I remember that.
It was a lot of people. It was just, that's another one. It's just an unforgettable evening. I'm always going to love the Oktoberfest. It's certainly the best of the best when it comes to town festivals. It probably competes with Merchant Street these days to be the best festival in this area, but they're very different.
Yes.
So I don't know if you'd really want to put them sort of head to head, because there is sort of a small town charm that comes with Mantino Oktoberfest, on top of the fact that it's very well attended and it's big. But, Merchant Street probably still has a little bit of the edge because they're able to rope in a little more of the national talent.
Yes.
And they got a little more of the artistic side.
I was going to say more emphasis on art.
But they're both of those two are probably just the two biggest and best festivals out here. But I just the why all of that happened in my life is it's way too long of a story to be getting into here, But I think it was the right choice in my life at the time, and when I look back, I still feel like it was the right choice to be made. And I took a year off. After that, I took probably more than a year off, like probably 14 months off. And there was a lot of changes that I was making in my life with the music and my family. And there was some high points and there's some low points. And, eventually I missed it and I had to get back. It was for my mental health and for my sanity and for my friends and my family, the people that loved me. Like, it was quintessential part of my life and my person to get back to playing music. If you're a performer at heart, and being a performer, whether it's music or any form of entertainment, if that's who you are, then trying to stifle that or suppress it for the sake of other people is not a smart move to make. You can do it. You can try it. Depending on how passionate you are about your creative outlet, it might work for you, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
It really didn't.
I've learned that as well.
Some people can do that. Some people can just be like, I'm a singer, I'm a guitar player, but I have 4 kids and I love my family, so I'm putting my guitar away. Excellent. And I chose for myself, to try to find a balance between my happiness as a performer and my life as a parent and as a father. And that's what I do now. And today, since 2017, when I came back, my life has been an effort to try to balance the two for the sake of for me to hold true to myself and the person that I am, and for my child, because she's 10 years old and I want her to know her dad for who he really is, and not just a broken man who put away the thing he loved the most in his life for the sake of other people. Like, she deserves to know who I really am.
It's something that I tend to struggle with too, is, being present, but also it's important not to sacrifice everything, because your child also needs to see that you're more than just their parent.
Right.
Because you want them to chase after their dream too. Yes. So I think that's why it's important that we also go after our dream in a certain extent. We don't have to quit our day jobs.
Right.
You know, you can still pursue your dream and have a day job, you know, or just because it's something you love to do doesn't mean it has to become a career.
Well, certainly. And, I wouldn't even consider advocating for one or the other. Like, I would never criticize anybody who is in the arts that chooses not to for the sake of their family. More power to you if that's what you want.
Absolutely.
Or at the same time, if you are such a dedicated musician that, you know, your 3-year-old comes up to you and you're like, honey, get the thing away from me. Like, if that's what it takes for you to succeed is, hey, my creative life is this important. I need to shut these kids out and rely on my partner to handle things. If that's what works for you, that's fine. Like, for me, you know, I have a very delicate balance between my life as a musician and my family life, which could only happen the way it does because of my wife. My wife is the one who helps to make all of this happen for me. And through many conversations, she understands. She doesn't necessarily agree all the time, but she understands. And what works especially well in my life is the fact that me and her were friends for 10 years before we got married. She was a fan of the music. She would come to the shows. So I guess I vetted her long enough to know that this is my life. She knows it's an important part of my life.
Yeah.
So, you know, do you have to book so many shows? Like, there's those type of questions. And I'm like, well, you know, you knew who you married. Yeah, but do you have to book so many?
You do play a lot of shows, and I'm always like, my God.
Yes, but, you know, I'm not going to be able to do it forever. Number one, I'm not going to be able to do it at this pace forever. Number two, I'm not going to be able to do it for a very much longer period because it's very tiring. It's very, like, I have to take months off in order to rejuvenate, to come back and play, you know? So essentially I have a small window to, like, shake the peach tree as much as I can to get as many peaches as I can, because eventually I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. And I'll be relegated to, like, Sunday afternoons at, like, the Sportsman's Club, you know, playing Bruce Springsteen songs with my arthritic fingers that don't even play anymore. Like, then I'll be playing Freebird. See?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you could play Freebird at that point. Your fingers might not be able to handle it.
A disheveled old man, like, are you guys ready to hear some Rolling Stones? And I love the fact that there is a sort of
there is a market for that.
There's an old man league in this job. But,
yeah,
you know, the days of being able to be able to stay up till midnight, 1 a.m, and make the kind of money that you can make doing this are very, very short. The days are numbered. I'm 40 years old right now. You know, my best days are behind me. I'm 40 pounds behind me at this point. You know, I'm waddling to the stage. So, you know, like
well, we could work on that. You know, we can go to the gym together. Help each other out.
If I only had that kind of time. But yeah.
Right. I have the same trouble. I'm like, I need to go for a walk today. And I'm like, but I got all this stuff to do.
Usually
making time.
You know, I have you were talking earlier before we pushed the record button about how you got the neighbor that always pulls the barbecue out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wafting smells of good smoked meat. So, like, you indulge a little too much on that stuff, and pretty soon I'm, like, resting the guitar on my belly. Like, so yeah, it's just, I know in my heart that it's a finite amount of time that I have. And you know, you only have people's attention for so long too. You know, like, as good as you might be at your craft, you're only going to be able to do it for so long. And eventually it's not going to be fun, new, or exciting anymore. And I don't want to just fade away. I want to have the time that we have, enjoy the time we have, and then be gone. That's the plan. So, you know, and we'll see what other kind of projects come my way. You know, like the project that we're working with, you know, the Southside Social Club is absolutely, and it's an amazing operation with some super talented musicians. Probably, I mean, some of the best that I've ever worked with. And I've done so many gigs in so many places, but these dudes are they're so talented And that's what gets me excited these days, is being able to work with really, really good players who are driven, they're motivated, they work so hard. Like, that's what I'm talking about with this job, is set the expectation, set the goal for yourself, and then bust your butt and then earn it. So when we get offered shows that are like really good around here, you know, when a town festival says, would you like to be our Saturday night headliner? The biggest opportunity that you can get around here. And we say yes. I always go back to them. I got text messages to prove it. Like, I go back to them and say, be very proud that we're here, but don't forget that you earned it. You earned your place here, that nobody handed us anything as a band. Like, we are constantly working to get to these places. So yeah, try to motivate the boys, you know.
You put it perfectly. I mean, the everyone, Ben, Zimmy, everyone, Carol as well.
Eric, yeah.
Eric is, I don't know, I love all the guys.
Yes.
They're all really great guys.
It's like a fraternity. It's working with really good friends that just happen to be really motivated in the same way that you are. But it's at the same time, it's like we're just buddies, you know? And it's a unique balance to have that. I'm sure there are other bands in this area that have that same vibe, where like you show up to play a show and you look across the stage and you're like, these are my guys. These are my buddies. I would hang out with these guys even if we put the guitars away. And for most of my life as a musician, I've had aspects of that, you know? Like, Jeff and Brennan were great friends and we did hang out. I didn't have that with Black Cadillac. We all were very friendly and stuff like that, but we didn't really have much of a social life outside of the stage. But this is, for the longest time, I have not had this type of experience where, like, we'll have a weekend off and be like, you guys want to come over, put some meat on the grill, have a couple beers and throw the bags around? Like, we hang out on and off the stage, and I hope...
Hence the name.
Yes, yes. And I would hope that translates, you know, like, you would think that would translate to a crowd, to be like, these guys are very comfortable with each other and they're having fun up there. And if you can come to the show and see that it's a very, very fun for us to do it, then hopefully you can have some fun with us as well. And that's the key. Yeah. Right there is have fun with us, because we are having a blast.
I was always told, in multiple different forms of entertainment I've done, is if you're having fun, then the audience is having fun. If you're not having fun, then the audience is not going to have fun either. So
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely,
that goes true with so many different, all forms of entertainment. You know,
yeah, it's just a comfort thing. You know, like if you're not comfortable holding a baby, and somebody just puts a baby in your arms,
it's probably going to cry.
The baby's going to sense it. He's going to be like, I don't feel this threatened. I'm in your arms. You're not happy. I'm not happy. We're not happy. But like, if you can express that sort of passivity and comfort to that baby, that's what we're doing as a band. We're like taking you in our arms and we're going to rock you
Cradle.
Like this. And we're just going to have some fun with you. But it's all about making you comfortable with the process, you know. That's what another thing too, since a lot of what we've discussed here is, you know, the pursuit of original material and the pursuit of covers, and the difference in the dichotomy.
Huge difference between the two.
You know, with D-Jim, it was all creativity, all original, and we would pepper in a cover once in a great while. Black Cadillac, zero original material, exclusively covers from start to finish. We never wrote, we never wrote together, we never worked together in that sense. It was a decision that was made right out of the get. It was like, we're not going to try to win people over with some sad, droopy breakup song. We are literally just going to come rock them. When I took the time off, I kept writing, because I've been a songwriter my whole life. And that was one of the sort of prereqs in order to get back into the band, which is something that everybody in the social club agreed immediately to. But it was like, we got this project. I want to do this. We've got ideas for songs to entertain a crowd, but we're also going to be doing original material. Yes, I'm in. Like, no hesitation.
I think that's because every member of Southside Social Club has written original music in another band, if not multiple bands,
Certainly.
or on their own.
Yeah, and I think it was just, for me, it was important at that time in my life. I needed to nourish my soul with more than just bar covers. It's not that I have nothing against them. I enjoy having fun and doing it, but I needed that little extra edge in order to keep me interested and pull me back in, and so we would learn a couple of songs, and then we would learn one of mine, and then we'd learn a big swath of covers, and then I'd stick another one of my songs in there. And so all along the way, that's the way we've done it. We get up into the lab and we'd be working together and learn a ton of covers, and then I'd be like, okay, let's talk about this song that I wrote. And then it's really, really cool for me, because I have a vision in my head about how I want things, but then as a songwriter, you gotta let them.
It's hard to let go of that.
Yep.
That vision.
It's just placing your piece of art into somebody else's hands and letting them kind of play with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what so I would write something and with a guitar and then hand it to them and say, I want it to be kind of like this. And then I'd have to take a step back and let them figure it out. Let them take it where they wanted to go with it. Then this is 4 bars of solo. I'm thinking something up here, but do whatever you want. Zimmy, I'm thinking it's kind of a driving beat. It's like 3/4 something, maybe a little snare roll, but do it however you want, and just look at them and be like, Eric, this is the bass. I'm thinking it's like a little thump and a rump and a pump, pump, pump like this, and maybe a little up on the neck. And then, hey, just take it wherever you want. Like, just let them kind of carve out their own path. And then the products were excellent. And I'm like, these guys are helping me be a better player because they're taking these songs that I wrote and just elevating them to a new level. And it got me more excited to be like, okay, well, here's some more. Here's some more stuff, here's some faster, upbeat stuff that a crowd would like. Here's some slower, introspective music that's just a little different, and no matter what it was, these guys were just gobbling it up. So it's been, that part has probably been one of my favorite aspects of working with these guys.
Has there been a plan to record any of these songs?
Oh, see, that's
because as for me, that's what I love, is being able to hear the recordings of these original songs.
True. That's the $1 billion question is,
yeah.
Well, if you're having that much fun and they're going over at the bars. Well, why not get into a studio and lay them down? I'm like, that's the thing that we, that's sort of the ceiling where my head just keeps bumping into the ceiling all the time. Like, this is what we need to do. Like, we have completed enough original material to do like a 5 or 6 song EP if we wanted to, or an LP or what, or QP. I don't know what are the P's. I don't know what we're doing anymore.
A long play, right?
So LP, I guess it would be what's an EP? Is that extended play?
I think that's extended.
Or is it
play.
SP, short play? I don't know. These are terms to use for actual records. But the point is, there's material there, and I've got so many buddies that do studio work, and there's
and obviously home recording has improved so much over the years.
It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah,
that's just,
and with the busy schedule, it adds a whole nother element to the band. So I can understand why it hasn't happened, but I'm just saying that you have my support. Is what I'm saying. So.
Well, yeah, I just need somebody to get a torch and just stick it right on my butt.
Oh, I can do that.
Light a fire.
I'll just head down to Ace real quick. I'll be right back, Matt. You just hold tight.
So yeah, I mean, it's ever since we finished the roadmap. The roadmap was probably the first song that we did as a band where I felt like this has got some potential. Like, I felt so confident with the roadmap when we did it as a band that when we played Merchant Street back in 2019, we kicked off our set with the roadmap.
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
it's got enough energy that people would probably hear it and think maybe this is like somebody else's song.
Yeah, and I haven't heard it.
So we finished it, and I'm like, that was one of ours. Yeah. And then we jumped into, I think we went to like, Hall & Oates or something like that. But like we came out of the gate screaming with one of our songs.
That must have felt so good.
There's video that Lupe took a video at the time and never told me and never showed me. That was in 2019. He sent it to me about a month ago. And
That's so Lupe.
I know.
He does that stuff.
I found this on my phone. Here, check this out. And it's like a 30-second video of right at the end of the song. And you can see me. I'm so excited that I'm literally jumping up and down.
Wow.
Jumping. Yeah, I'll show it to you after we're done. But yeah. It's like, to me, it exemplifies just how excited we were to be part of Merchant Street.
Yeah.
Because it was such an excitable feeling to do it. Like there was so many nerves. And I'd already played Merchant Street twice at that point. But to be able to do it with these guys in the way that we did it and the way we made it there just made it a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And I remember being so nervous that like I couldn't even drink. Like I was backstage with a cold beer slamming, wasn't doing a thing because I had such nerves, some nervous energy. And they're like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, I'm so nervous because I just wanted it to be this. I wanted it to be this unforgettable night for us to be able to do it together. And it really was. It was because we still talk about it and we talk about what we did and how we did it. And, everything changed in the next year and a half, with restrictions and things getting shut down and the big festivals being canceled. And all of that was like a wet blanket on our lives as musicians. But prior to that, man, we were on this high. And
I agree. It was everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like we were on a high.
Pre-COVID life was so much different, and having to like endure working through the pandemic as musicians and try to be excited and try to keep your music fresh and frankly try to even play shows, like during the height of things, we weren't doing anything. There was no gigs. Nobody even wanted to play. Nobody wanted to take the risk or the chance to play. Like, well, what if we played out in this beer garden? Like, yeah, I mean, I guess, but do we have to? Do we need to?
Yeah.
How safe is it? Like there was so many questions.
But now it sounds like we're getting into the endemic. I keep hearing that word more and more. So
Ben was right.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Ben told me 2 months ago that Omicron was the end of COVID, and I was like, what? And then he sent me a link. He sent me a link to a story, and I'm like, oh, Omicron is the end. I got you now.
Yeah. Thank God. So now, starting to get back to gigs.
Yeah.
And well, one thing, I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours. Like we literally could, because there's so many other things we haven't
covered.
know.
There's a lot. We missed a lot, but that's okay.
Because like another thing we haven't, like we've talked a little bit about, writing original music, but not like we could get even more deeper into that. But I wanted to hear at least one or two songs, if we could.
Sure.
If we could do that.
I certainly have evolved a lot of my sensibility as a writer, coming from some really, really humble beginnings, not really understanding much about the writing experience. Coming from 3-chord punk music was like my first inspiration. A lot of 50s and 60s doo-wop and soul music was all big inspiration for me as a songwriter when I was a teenager. So it was very simplistic back then, My love came from up above like a turtle dove in the sea of love. Like it was all
right.
Everything
just
had to
making
rhyme.
Sure everything has to rhyme. And it's like, does it make sense? No, but it rhymes.
She was my girl. She was my whole world. Like, yeah. Like I went through all those patches in my life. And then, while I was up at Columbia, I took some creative writing courses, which definitely helped to sort of refine my ability to write within what a lot of creative writers refer to as your mind's eye. So it's like the ability to perceive what you're trying to write and at times kind of see outside of yourself, because so much of songwriting is first person narrative. You're basically just telling a story that happened to you in your life. And there's so much more to the songwriting experience than just being like, meet girl, get dumped, write song. Like there's so much more to it.
Yes.
And so, I've gone through a lot of phases in my life, and there's been creative peaks and there's been creative absolute craters of no creativity at all. Droughts, writer's block. I'd go years without writing. And then the synapses would start firing again, and I would become inspired again, and I would start writing again. And then there'd be just like that. It would go blank, like a blank slate, and you cannot hold your hands to the guitar and force it. You can't force it.
No. Yeah, you got to strike it when the fire's hot.
Yeah.
And, and when it's there, you got to keep going.
So like I would develop some sort of kind of concepts along the way. Like that, one of the songs that I wanted to play tonight was a conceptual song that I wrote a couple years ago. But to understand some of the content, because it's not necessarily first person, but it deals with an interesting thing that happens in a lot of people's lives. I was a married guy in my 20s, and then in my early 30s, I wound up getting divorced, which happens. And I kind of resigned myself from the idea of dating because I'm a married man. What do I need to date for? So I found myself thrust into this world that I was completely ill prepared for at a time when I hadn't been on a date in a long, long time. So I had to kind of relearn how to approach women, and I had to kind of relearn how to make that connection in a world that had changed drastically since the last time I had to do it.
Yeah.
And what I found in my 30s was that like the people had basically just built these impenetrable force fields around themselves. And there's so much of that casual stuff going on that it was hard to make a connection. I had a really, really hard time.
And it's because of those shields. That's why all the casual stuff is going on.
But it just, I started seeing this repetitious pattern of starting like laying a little bit of the groundwork for what could be something. And then it would, you'd like start laying a little bit of a layer, and then nothing. It would just vanish. Oh, okay. Well, I guess that wasn't going to work. And then you'd start a little bit of the groundwork, and in the get to know you stage. Yeah, thank you.
No, it's all right.
And that get to know you stage, I've been hurt. Well, so have I. Haven't we all? We've all been hurt.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what happened to you? Oh, guy broke my heart. Well, it's okay. I understand. Guy broke your heart. So now you have like a 40-foot wrought iron electrified fence around your heart, and you're not letting anybody get anywhere near you. And so how do you expect me to make the connection when you have built this fortification around the emotional, basically your emotional needs are protected. So conceptually, I refer to it as the guarded heart. Like you have this guarded heart. And it made things very difficult for me because I was coming from being married, and I would be very direct. Well, I like you. I think you're very pretty, and I want to take you out on a date. And then afterwards, I would like to talk to you on the phone. Like I would get nowhere for a long time, and I'd be just thinking to myself, I'm a musician, I'm a cool guy, I have a good sense of humor. Like, why am I just repeatedly whiffing at the ball, striking out? Because I don't know if I just had the wrong approach, or because I was like trying to pursue these guarded hearts that their emotions were too well protected from being hurt. I'm not going to be messing around with you, little musician man, because I've dealt with little guys like you, and I'm not even going down that road. So run along now. Go sing your songs. So yeah, that's kind of what it's in. My wife was one of these people. She was most definitely a guarded heart. And it took her taking a chance on me for anything to happen. Because, it was never going to work the other way around. She had to eventually let down her guard a little bit and take a chance. And so that was the only way it was able to work. So I wrote a song about that concept, the concept of the guarded heart. And it's just told from a lot of different perspectives, and the basis or the inspiration for it came from a lot of different places. But you want me to grab the guitar?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Let's do this. So
We
what's
good?
Yeah, so is it called Guarded Heart?
It's called Guarded Hearts, plural.
Okay.
So the song's called Guarded Hearts. And yeah, it deals with the situation that some people find themselves in when they're put out into that world unexpectedly. So this is Guarded Hearts. Everywhere I go, everywhere I look, everywhere I turn, I'm faced with another person who's dealt with the pain. So much heartbreak, love and loss turns into fear and to shame. This invisible fence, she won't let me in again. But I try, and I try. 'Cause guarded hearts, their love is so strong. There's no better place to be than in her arms. Look in her eyes, the touch of her skin. I know we're both afraid to let someone in again. These things take time. No one wants to wait. They just run right away to the next thing that numbs the pain. But I'll wait. Yes, I'll wait. 'Cause guarded hearts, they'll do many things, but they won't get hurt again. And every person just wants to protect themselves. But how can I reach her when she won't give me the chance? Me and her, we are the same. I know she's been hurt, but I won't just give up. I won't take the easy way. Yes, I'll wait, and I'll wait. 'Cause guarded hearts, their love is so strong. There isn't a better place. Guarded hearts, their love is so strong. I won't let her get hurt again. Thank you.
I mean, you're used to having an audience clap for you, right? Oh, that was beautiful. I love that. I love that song. I love the concept behind it too. It's definitely something we can all relate to.
Right.
And dating in your 30s, I mean, of course, even dating in your younger days, you can encounter that. But I feel like in your 30s, that's pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think for younger people, they've got more time and less experience and probably willing to give more of a chance.
Right.
Whereas, and this might be more relaxed as you get older. Maybe into your 40s and your 50s, you don't give a crap anymore. It seemed like for me, prior to being married, I kept running into a really similar pattern of people that just was like, I've dealt with too much crap. If you're not exactly what I need, exactly what I want, I'm not going to give you the time. And or I just was not able to do it. Or I think, a lot of people were probably just overtly concerned about the musician side of things. That's just on me. That's on me as a person.
Yeah.
But
Well, right. There's that stereotype.
but you know, I just it was definitely a source of inspiration for me. Like during that time, I wrote a bunch of different songs about different things.
Well, this has been amazing.
Oh well, thanks, man. I've had absolute blast.
It's an honor having you here, especially considering you've listened to the podcast, and so
love it.
It means a lot to
Thank
have
you.
your support and kind words, and now to add you to the amazing list of people that have been on this podcast. So,
well, yeah, keep up the good work, man. It's a very, very good podcast. I've always enjoyed your perspective on things, and moving the interviews along really well, and you got good cadence, and yeah, man, you got
too kind.
You got a really cool thing going here. So I just wanted to say thanks for letting me be a part of it, because
of course
it's been a really, really fun time.
How could I not? You're like I said, you're like the troubadour of Kankakee County. So how could I not? But yeah. Any like, what do you want to leave people with? If I don't know if you want to plug any. What's the easiest way for people to find you on social media about Southside gigs
for sure.
or even just solo gigs, obviously too?
Yeah, you can find us on our website. There's links to the website on our Facebook page, and we've been off for the last 2 months. We did a wedding last weekend for some people in Mantino, and then we're gonna get back at it. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be around. We're going to be in Piatone and Kankakee, but really the brunt of what we're going to do as a band is coming this summer. This summer, we've got a really great lineup of music. It's just going to be an unforgettable summer for us. So definitely want to keep your eyes peeled for shows that we're going to be doing. We're going to be running into a lot of friends this summer, and we as a band are like super, super committed to bringing, we're not the status quo. We're kicking things up a notch this summer. We've been off for a while. We've all been in this sort of COVID fog for God knows how long. And once we get these shackles off and get back to life in a semi-normal fashion with $5 gas and a war going on, we're going to have a blast.
I was just going to say, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I know. I've been seeing all these memes online. It's like, showing like The Simpsons, there's like, they show, I think it's Bart with a chair and he's Putin.
Oh,
and then,
yeah.
And then there's like Homer. He's supposed to be Summer. Like a normal, finally having a normal summer, and
about to hit him.
about to hit him. But yeah, as normal as possible, right? I mean, there's always something going on in the world. But
it's gonna be a great year for music, for live music. We had a little taste of it last year. Some of the regulations were kind of lax last year, but this year I think it's going to be, the gloves are going to come off, and we're going to get back to business as usual. And hopefully have a really, really good summer. That's what I'm hoping for.
I'm excited for it.
Hope to see you out there, man.
Yeah, I need to finally go to I'm going to put it on my bucket list, my summer bucket list right now. See Matt Yeager, see a solo show.
See a solo show.
Yeah,
you got to get into because we never even covered all the other rules.
No, we didn't.
There's a bunch of other rules.
Oh my gosh, we didn't cover all the other rules. Well, at least people know the main ones now for when they come out to a show.
The last rule is don't yell Freebird.
Yes, I love these rules, man.
It says, "Don't yell Freebird. I get it. You're hilarious."
Yeah,
that's what it says in the book.
I love that. That having those rules. That's great.
Yeah. So you come up to the solo show, and then you can get in the books.
Yeah,
you can dig around a little bit and find some songs.
That would be amazing.
You'll love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Matt.
No problem.
That concludes this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake LaMore. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this podcast with a family member, a friend, or a neighbor that you think might enjoy learning new things about the people and places of Kankakee County. The more we share this podcast with new people, the more we're going to grow.
Also, a special thank you to our patrons for helping make this episode possible. That includes Jake Lee, Jesse Arsenal, Dave Barron, Daryl Damper, Samantha Rochnowski, Lake Iverson, Jake Vaughn, Travis Garcia, Jane Bostwick, Dawn Harrison, Simon Topless, Scott Wright, Carrie O'Connell, Jamie Race, Eric Olson, Jeff and Rosa Carroll, Teague Dreenan, and Sandy and Steve Twait. To become a podcast patron, go to KankakeePodcast.com and click on the Patron tab. If you pledge $5 or more per month, you'll also hear your name announced on every single episode. There's also other rewards like early access to episodes, commercial-free episodes, podcast merch, discounts on live podcast events. There's even a reward where you and I can grab some coffee and go to the Kankakee County Museum together. Your monthly pledge is truly appreciated. Our goal currently is to reach $400 per month or more. And this is going to help us launch our new YouTube series that I'd like to start doing called Kankakee Podcast Out and About, where we actually take you to some of the coolest places in Kankakee County, and you can see them instead of just hearing about them. So please sign up for our patron program today at KankakeePodcast.com. Our theme song is by Lupe Carroll.